Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we cut through the clutter to give you the essential insights you need to be truly well-informed.
Glad to be here.
Today, we're diving into a concept that's almost as old as modern economics itself, a phrase you've almost certainly heard: the invisible hand of the market.
Adam Smith, The Wealth of Nations.
Exactly. His groundbreaking work. It suggests this incredible sort of self-regulating order where individuals, just by pursuing their own self-interest,
Unintentionally end up contributing to the greater good.
right, almost magically, it seems. It's been a cornerstone, really, of economic thought, this idea of an emergent natural balance.
It truly is a foundational principle. The idea implies this spontaneous order. Resources, effort, they just naturally flow to where they're most productive.
Without anyone directing traffic, so to speak.
Precisely. No central command needed. The system is trusted, almost, to self-correct and optimize. That's what makes it so fascinating.
And it is fascinating. But, okay, let's pause for a moment. Think about the world today. Specifically, the lightning-fast, often chaotic world of modern startups.
Yeah, tech companies, disruptors.
The ones starting in garages, scaling globally in what feels like overnight sometimes.
A very different environment from Smith's time.
Completely. So my big question, and this is really the core of our deep dive today, is this. Are Adam Smith's classical economic theories still sufficient? Do they fully explain what's happening in this incredibly fast-paced startup landscape?
That's a huge question.
Is that slow, emergent, invisible hand truly compatible with the rapid, deliberate, almost scientific approach that today's innovators use?
You mean the lean startup approach?
Exactly. The build, measure, learn loop.
It really does raise a fundamental question about markets themselves, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Are they purely organic systems that we just sort of observe?
Or can they be intentionally shaped, designed, accelerated even by human will and strategy?
Right. Observer versus architect.
And that precisely is our mission in this deep dive. We're going to critically analyze Smith's core ideas, but we'll look at them through this very modern, very practical lens of The Lean Startup by Eric Ries.
Okay. Comparing the classical with the contemporary.
We want to explore, really dig in whether that gradual, often reactive, invisible hand can actually keep pace with the proactive build, measure, learn feedback loop that defines innovation today.
Speed versus emergence.
We'll offer a constructive look at where Smith's ideas might fall short, especially when you think about digital markets, network effects, things he couldn't have foreseen.
Things that fundamentally change the dynamics.
And we'll ask, can a purely hands-off, emergent approach truly succeed now, in an era that demands constant customer feedback, intentional design?
That's a big ask for a purely emergent system.
It is. So this is really a reassessment of a foundational economic idea, but seen through the harsh realities of modern business practice.
Sounds like a necessary conversation.
All right, let's start our journey back at the source. Part 1. The grand vision of the invisible hand.
Back to Smith himself.
At its very heart, Smith's core idea from The Wealth of Nations. It's that individuals, just pursuing their own self-interest, often promote the public interest more effectively than if they'd actually deliberately tried to.
It's almost counterintuitive, isn't it?
That really is. A beautifully simple, almost paradoxical concept. You, the individual, you try to improve your own situation, make a profit, whatever.
And in doing so, you contribute to the wealth and well-being of everyone else.
Without even meaning to.
Precisely. That's the essence of this spontaneous order argument. Smith believed that if individuals are free to act in their own self-interest, produce, trade, compete, then a natural equilibrium just sort of arises.
Like the baker example he uses.
Exactly. The baker doesn't bake bread primarily out of benevolence to feed the city.
They want to earn a living, make a profit.
Right. But in pursuing that profit, they produce something essential. They feed thousands, and competition between bakers naturally keeps prices reasonable and quality decent.
Because if one baker charges too much,
customers go elsewhere. Or if their bread is terrible, their business fails.
Oh, okay.
So this constant interplay, driven by countless individual decisions, it creates an efficient allocation of resources. And that ultimately benefits society. It's a powerful vision, this organic market equilibrium.
It's elegant, compelling. But here's where it gets, well, more interesting. The nuances. Smith himself, the guy who came up with this, wasn't arguing for a complete free-for-all, was he? He actually acknowledged that the ideal conditions for this perfect balance
need not be satisfied, in fact. his words.
Right. Even the architect of the invisible hand saw its limits, saw the circumstances where it might not work perfectly.
That's a crucial point and often missed. Smith was a very keen observer of the economy of his day, and he was pretty critical of what he called regulations of police,
Which basically meant,
government interventions or established practices that distorted how the market would naturally work.
like, monopolies.
Absolutely. He explicitly condemned monopoly powers. He said, the price of monopoly is upon every occasion the highest which can be got. He understood monopolies aren't the result of free competition.
They're artificial. They kill the competition.
Exactly. They remove the very pressure that keeps prices down and quality up. If there's no competition, the invisible hand is, well, it's tied behind its back.
And it wasn't just monopolies he pointed out, right? He also looked at things hindering the flow of capital and labor.
Oh, absolutely. He criticized the privileges given to certain corporations back then. They often restricted who could enter a trade. That hindered capital moving to where it could be most productive.
And things like the poor laws.
Yes, the poor laws and the statutes of apprenticeship. The poor laws restricted where people could work, essentially tying them to their local parishes, even if better jobs were available elsewhere.
Limiting mobility.
And the statutes of apprenticeship controlled who could practice certain trades, how long they had to train, artificially controlling the labor supply.
So these rules may be intended to provide stability.
Smith argued they actually held the market back. They stifled competition, prevented an efficient allocation of, human capital. They made the invisible hand less effective.
It's amazing he was thinking about capital allocation even then. That distinction he made between unproductive hands and industrious people.
Right, the great lords feeding idle servants versus the merchants employing industrial workers.
That wasn't just a social comment, was it? It was about economics.
It was absolutely an economic point. It highlighted his focus on productive capital. The Lord's spending might circulate money, sure, but it fed people who produced no new value. Unproductive consumption.
Whereas the merchant's capital
Invested in tools, materials. It supported workers who produced goods that could be traded, creating new wealth, driving growth. This distinction shows that while he believed in self-interest, he knew the conditions mattered. If those conditions are warped by monopolies, restrictive rules, bad capital allocation, the invisible hand might not work as intended. It might even lead to worse outcomes.
Okay, so building on Smith, later thinkers really ran with this defense of free markets, sometimes taking it beyond just economics.
The philosophical dimension grew.
You think about someone like Ayn Rand, her novel Atlas Shrugged. It's practically a manifesto for individualism.
It definitely is. A dramatic reinforcement of individual production, self-interest, absolute property rights.
It paints this picture where free individuals, totally unhindered by government or collective action, create all value. Any interference is portrayed as not just inefficient, but morally wrong.
A very strong stance. And then you have thinkers like F.A. Hayek broadening the perspective again, especially in The Road to Serfdom.
Hayek picks up Smith's thread but sounds a warning.
A powerful warning against any kind of deliberate central economic control. He argued passionately that central planning, however well-meaning, inevitably leads down a path to tyranny and economic disaster.
His big concern was the knowledge problem.
Exactly. That was central to his argument. The idea that central planners could never possibly gather and process all the dispersed, local, often unspoken knowledge needed to run an economy efficiently.
Can you unpack that a bit more? Why is that dispersed knowledge so vital, and why can't a central planner just collect it?
Well, think about it. Millions of tiny pieces of information are constantly being generated. A farmer knows their specific soil conditions. A craftsman has their intuition. A shopkeeper sees daily customer preferences. A factory manager knows about a bottleneck right now.
It's local, specific, changing all the time.
Exactly. It's not centrally observable. A lot of it is tacit. You can't easily write it down. Hayek argued the market's price system is this brilliant communication network. A price change instantly signals something shifted, a shortage, a new technology to millions of people.
And they adjust their behavior without needing a memo from the planning committee.
Precisely. They don't need to know why the price changed. A central planner, lacking these real-time signals, is flying blind. They'd inevitably misallocate resources, shortages here, surpluses there.
Leading to inefficiency.
And that inefficiency, Hayek warned, would then require more and more coercion to force people to follow the flawed plan. That's the slippery slope, the road to serfdom.
He also had concerns about protecting people from Undeserved loss. What did he mean by that?
Yes, that was another key point. He worried that if you try to shield people from market outcomes, guarantee profits, bail out failing businesses, set wages regardless of value created.
You break the connection between reward and usefulness.
Exactly. In a functioning market, profit signals value, loss signals misallocated resources. If you interfere with that, you remove the incentives that guide people toward efficiency. Decisions become arbitrary who deserves help, rather than market-driven. It further distorts the invisible hand and reduces overall wealth.
So the message is, interfering with those signals, even with good intentions, can undermine the whole system.
That was certainly Hayek's fear, implicitly trusting the emergent order over deliberate control.
Okay, so we have Smith's grand vision, its nuances, and how later thinkers like Rand and Hayek developed or defended it. Now let's pivot sharply
To the modern world.
to the lean loop modern innovations intentional design. This is where Eric Ray's and the lean startup come in, and it feels like a completely different philosophy.
It really is a significant shift. It's not about passively waiting for the market. It's deliberate, it's scientific, almost like running experiments in a lab, but your lab is the real world.
An intentional design approach.
Absolutely. Instead of relying on those slow market forces to eventually sort things out, the lean startup pushes for a proactive, iterative, very scientific method.
Challenging the old way. The big upfront plan, massive investment, huge launch.
Right. Rees argues for rapid experimentation, systematically testing your core assumptions about the business, the customer, the market. The goal is ruthless efficiency in reducing uncertainty and waste.
Which sounds, yeah, fundamentally different from the organic, let's see what happens vibe of the invisible hand.
Worlds apart in approach.
And a key part of this is validated learning through rapid experimentation, especially this small batches idea,
Yeah.
launching a minimum viable product, an MVP, not to sell millions right away, but to test your critical assumptions quickly and cheaply, minimize risk, maximize learning speed.
The emphasis on speed and, crucially, economy in getting that knowledge is what's compelling. An MVP isn't just a basic product. It's the smallest possible thing you can build to test a hypothesis.
To get validated learning, is this real? Do people want this?
Exactly. It's about building an experiment first.
Yeah.
The book uses that alphabet example with their energy products.
Right, instead of a massive energy project.
They raised just $1 million, used small batches of their tech with real customers, and they learned something critical fast.
What was it?
Customers didn't care most about maximum performance. They cared most about the lowest cost per watt.
Ah, a crucial insight.
Totally. It let them pivot their whole product strategy, saved potentially hundreds of millions, and found market truth way faster than a traditional big R&D push ever could have. It flips product development from build it and they will come to learn what to build.
And the measure-learn part of that loop hinges heavily on customer feedback, right? It seems paramount.
Oh, absolutely central.
We're not just talking about superficial surveys. It's about really understanding the customer, cultivating what some call a learning relationship.
Tracking things like lifetime value, actively getting information from individual customers.
Like that Walden Books example, even before everything was digital, the preferred reader's card.
Yeah, it seemed like just a discount card.
But they were tracking purchases, understanding reading habits.
So they could alert you to new books by authors you liked or signings. That wasn't just nice service.
Yeah.
It was a deliberate strategy. Understand preferences, build loyalty, anticipate needs. Very intentional.
It really connects to that classic idea from marketing myopia, doesn't it? That companies get into trouble focusing on their product. We make drills.
Instead of the customer need, people need holes.
Right. It's a core lean tenet. It's not just what you build, but who it's for and why they need it, fundamentally.
And tracking lifetime value, building those learning relationships. It's about actively gathering rich data. Purchase history, feedback, behavior, using it to personalize things, improve the offering, lock in loyalty.
And ultimately boost profits. It's intentional information gathering to shape your product, not just passively watching the market.
A very active stance.
Then there's this huge piece, agility, pivots, and actually embracing failure. This feels very modern startup, very different from traditional business. Clayton Christensen talks about this a lot. Success in strategy, he says, hinges on continuing to experiment until you do find an approach that works.
He even says only a lucky few companies start off with a strategy that ultimately leads to success.
Which implies you have to be ready to change course, to pivot, dramatically sometimes.
It's a direct challenge to the idea of a fixed 5-year plan, right? Especially in innovative fields where predictability is low, The advice to fail early and
You
inexpensively.
hear that everywhere in startup circles.
It's crucial. Reframe strategy as an ongoing experiment. Think about SpaceX.
All those early rocket failures, explosions on the launch pad.
Exactly. In a traditional company, that might be the end. But they treated failures as invaluable, rapid learning opportunities. Each explosion gave them data. That recovery led to improvements.
Resilience through iteration.
It's a world away from industries where failure is catastrophic and avoided at all costs, rather than seen as a necessary step in learning.
It reminds me of that clever example from the 4-Hour Work Week, the guy selling sailor shirts.
Yeah, sure would.
Instead of buying tons of inventory up front, risking everything.
He listed them on eBay as backorder.
Brilliant. Gauging real demand, getting actual customer signals before spending money on stock. Pure lean. Test the core assumption is their demand with minimal cost.
It's a perfect MVP example, a minimal, functional way to test the business hypothesis without betting the farm. Collect data on real intent to buy.
Validated learning again.
Exactly. Test it in the market. Don't just rely on forecasts. It cuts risk massively, allows you to pivot if nobody bites, or scale fast if they do.
Now, none of this happens easily. This whole build, measure, learn, pivot-friendly approach, it needs the right kind of organization, right? The right leadership.
Absolutely requires a specific culture and structure.
You see principles in books like Extreme Ownership, things like decentralized command, explaining the why so teams can act autonomously.
Empowering the front lines.
And Team of Teams talks about team-like oneness, bottom-up solutions, connectivity built on trust and purpose.
These leadership styles are facilitators. They create the environment where rapid iteration and learning can actually happen.
So it's not just process, it's people and structure.
Definitely. In extreme ownership, leaders don't just give orders. They ensure everyone understands the mission, the why. That clarity plus trust enables decentralized decisions, speed, and effectiveness on the ground.
No micromanagement.
Right. And Team of Teams emphasizes that the best solutions often bubble up from cohesive, trusting groups, not dictated from the top. You need that collaboration, even constructive disagreement, for continuous feedback and adaptation, without leaders building that.
The lean loop stalls, bureaucracy wins.
Pretty much.
And it also seems to involve more deliberate strategic thinking, too. Frameworks like the one in Playing to Win.
Laughley and Martin.
Yeah. They push for a structured logic, understand the industry, customers, your capabilities, the competition. It really pushes back against the idea that success just, emerges.
It points to this blend of intentionality, right? The market might seem emergent, but winning companies actively analyze, define, even shape their competitive space.
Playing to Win offers that framework for making deliberate choices. Understand the industry, empathize with customers, assess yourself honestly, anticipate competitors.
It's strategic design, consciously crafting an advantage, a path to victory, not just passively accepting whatever the invisible hand deals you, being the sculptor, not just the observer.
And underpinning so much of this modern approach is the tech infrastructure. We can't ignore that.
Cloud computing especially.
Amazon Web Services, AWS, as described in the Everything Store, it was revolutionary, making infrastructure costs variable, not fixed. Startups, even big companies, could suddenly experiment, launch new things, scale up or down with way less upfront cost and pain. No need to buy a server farm first.
It fundamentally democratized experimentation. Before AWS, launching an online service meant massive capital expense for servers, data centers, engineers.
Making small batches really expensive.
Exactly. AWS changed the economics. Pay only for what you use. Scale instantly. That flexibility is the bedrock for startups making the lean cycle actually work financially on a large scale. It's a very visible technological hand enabling this whole agile approach.
Okay, so we've laid out the classical ideal and the modern imperative. Now for part 3. The clash where the invisible hand encountered modern reality.
Where the theory meets the complex present.
Because Smith's ideas, foundational as they are, just didn't account for some major features of today's markets, like digital platforms and network effects.
Fundamentally different dynamics than a local baker's market.
Does Smith's model, which assumes lots of small competitors, really work when you have these winner-take-all dynamics?
That's the key question. In networked industries like social media or marketplaces, the goal isn't just market share, it's installed base.
More users equals more value for everyone.
Right, that positive feedback loop. Think Amazon's one-click patent. That wasn't passive market response. It was a deliberate, strategic move to lock in users, create an advantage.
intentional barrier building.
Exactly. These network effects can lead to incredibly concentrated markets, near monopolies, which challenges Smith's assumption of ongoing, diffused competition. The game changes from efficiency to achieving critical mass.
And it gets even more intentional, maybe even more problematic, when you look at Shoshana Zuboff's work on surveillance capitalism.
Behavioral surplus.
Explain that, how companies like Google aren't just responding to demand, but actively shaping it.
Well, initially, Google collected data, clicks and so on, to make search results better, service improvement.
Okay, makes sense.
But then, Zuboff argues, they realized this data exhaust, this behavioral surplus, was incredibly valuable in itself, not just for improving the service, but for predicting future user behavior.
Predicting what someone might buy or click on next.
Precisely. And selling those predictions to advertisers for targeted ads. This became a new, massively profitable business model built on repurposing user data.
So it's not just observing the market, it's actively predicting and influencing behavior for profit.
Yes, a deliberate reshaping of market dynamics using information asymmetry. It's a very visible, data-driven, hand-directing outcomes, far beyond Smith's idea of indirect public benefit from self-interest.
And there's the whole issue of human irrationality. The invisible hand kind of assumes we're all rational actors, right? Making logical choices.
The Homo economicus model.
But work by people like Daniel Kahneman, Dan O'Reilly, it shows we're anything but perfectly rational. We're predictably irrational.
This really hits a core premise of classical economics. If people don't always act rationally, how well can the market self-correct?
What are some examples?
Well, Kahneman talks about cognitive biases, like loss aversion. We feel the pain of a loss much more strongly than the pleasure of an equivalent gain.
So investors might hold on to losing stocks too long, hoping they'll bounce back.
Irrationally, yes. Instead of cutting losses based on analysis or anchoring, that first piece of information, like initial high price, sticks in our head and affects how we judge later prices, even if that first number was arbitrary.
Makes a discount look better than it is.
Right. These systematic biases mean market outcomes aren't just the sum of rational choices. They're shaped by psychology, making them less predictable, potentially less efficient.
And it's not just individual irrationality. Keynes had that famous beauty contest analogy for markets.
Yes. It's not about picking the face you think is prettiest.
But guessing which face average opinion will think is prettiest.
Exactly. It highlights how markets can be driven by collective psychology, herd behavior, sentiment, not just fundamentals.
Leading to things like bubbles. Irrational exuberance, as Thiel called it, regarding early tech valuations.
Precisely. Markets can detach from reality, driven by speculation, leading to booms and busts. And then you add in Nassim Taleb's black swan idea.
Unpredictable, high-impact events.
Events that are fundamentally unpredictable based on past data. Think 9/11, the 2008 crisis, the internet itself. They reshape everything. Models based on the past are useless.
So you need strategies that acknowledge this deep uncertainty. Consider a range of possibilities.
Exactly. Howard Marks emphasizes this too. You need flexibility, adaptability, not blind faith in a stable, self-correcting system that the invisible hand implies.
And sometimes it's not just irrationality or unforeseen events, it's outright manipulation or market failure.
Where the hand is not just invisible, it's actively malign.
Den of Thieves chronicled the insider trading scandals of the 80s. Bolesky, Milken.
Showing how a bull market could be fueled by arbitrageurs using junk bonds and inside info, focused on takeover value, not real company performance, deliberate gaming of the system.
A far cry from benevolent self-interest.
And The Big Short. A harrowing look at the subprime mortgage crisis. Blatant fraud, regulatory failure.
Where crooks got rich selling toxic assets.
It starkly challenges any idea that the market always self-corrects beneficially or ethically. The consequences were devastating.
Even within firms, you see dysfunction. Liar's Poker described that trading floor. Minimal supervision, minimal controls.
Traders chasing personal revenue over firm profits, leading to gross mismanagement, infighting, directly contradicting the idea of a self-optimizing system where individual incentives align with the greater good.
These examples really show a disconnect between private gain and public good sometimes.
A profound disconnect.
And sometimes it's not even illegal, just sheer power shaping reality, like Robert Moses in New York described in The Power Broker.
A fascinating case study.
Pushing through massive projects, highways, bridges, often against public opposition, using speed and influence.
his singular will overriding any emergent community preference or market logic. He literally shaped the physical and economic landscape according to his vision.
It shows how concentrated power, individual will, can absolutely dominate any subtle, invisible hand, a very visible hand indeed.
Absolutely. Whether it's through patents, financial manipulation, or political power, strong actors can intentionally create their own outcomes rather than just responding to emergent forces. Markets are arenas for power plays, not just abstract forces.
So, with all this digital platforms, biases, failures, power plays, how do new products even get adopted? It doesn't sound passive.
No, it often requires a deliberate push.
Guy Kawasaki talks about crossing the chasm, building on Gladwell's tipping point ideas.
hmm It's a strategic marketing effort. You don't just launch and wait.
You target innovators first, then early adopters, then the early majority. It's a planned campaign.
It acknowledges that different groups adopt technology at different rates, needing different messages. You have to actively guide adoption across these segments.
Success requires intervention, not just emergence, understanding psychology, building trust, showing value to each group.
And Seth Godin goes further with Purple Cow. He argues traditional marketing is dead. Products themselves have to be remarkable.
Designed to stand out, to generate buzz.
Exactly. Deliberately engineered to grab attention and spread organically in a noisy world. Again, intentional design, not just meeting existing demand and hoping the hand finds you.
Okay, let's try to pull this all together. Part 4, synthesizing a modern approach.
Bringing Smith and Ray's into conversation.
It seems pretty clear, right? For modern startups especially, a purely passive, invisible hand approach just isn't enough. It feels insufficient.
Agreed. The lean loop isn't just a process. It's a deliberate strategy, a way to actively navigate these complex, fast-moving markets and intentionally create new value.
We absolutely have to acknowledge Smith's foundational insights. Self-interest, competition, they still matter. But
But modern conditions, digital, networked, behavioral, they demand more. A proactive, adaptive, intentionally designed stance.
because waiting for equilibrium is too slow, too risky now.
You have to design experiments, get feedback, analyze, iterate,
Yeah.
discover the path, don't just wait for it to appear. It's an active dance with the market, not passive observation.
And that emphasis on strategic design, on feedback, it permeates everything in successful modern companies, doesn't it?
It has to.
You see it in the product itself, Steve Jobs' passion for product perfection.
Obsessive focus.
You see it in customer relationships, Starbucks building brand loyalty one customer at a time.
That deep connection.
And even in the internal plumbing, Sam Walton building the systems and organization for Walmart's growth.
It's intentionality at every level. Product, customer, operations. It's not accidental. It involves constant feedback, encouraging constructive disagreement, iterating to find and grow the market. That holistic, deliberate approach is key.
So adaptability becomes the name of the game, the crucial skill.
Absolutely. Carlota Perez talks about this with her technological revolutions, how major shifts create new paradigms, redefining best practice.
And the lean startup is basically a manifestation of that adaptive need for this current technological surge.
I think that's a great way to put it. The rules are changing constantly. The ability to pivot, to adjust strategy based on learning, like Christensen advises, that's what separates winners from losers today.
Because markets aren't static. Waiting for slow emergent forces isn't a strategy anymore.
It's a recipe for becoming obsolete. The lean loop gives you the tools for that constant adaptation, for shaping your destiny in these turbulent times.
Okay, so let's recap this deep dive. We've explored this tension, Smith's invisible hand, the idea of emergent market forces.
Versus the lean loop, the deliberate, iterative process to actively shape markets and create value intentionally.
We saw that even Smith recognized imperfections back then. And modern realities, digital tech, behavioral biases, network effects add layers of complexity he couldn't have imagined.
Right. While self-interest and competition are still factors, the scale, speed, and pure intentionality of modern players exploiting data, designing experiments demand a much more proactive view. The idea that markets just automatically find the best, fairest outcome, it feels insufficient, maybe even naive sometimes.
Which leads us to our final provocative thought, something for you, our listener, to think about after this is over.
Okay.
Given that even Adam Smith acknowledged market imperfections, and knowing that today's markets are so clearly influenced by our own irrationality, by huge tech monopolies, by deliberate manipulation, is the invisible hand now less of a real guiding force and maybe more of a historical ideal? A useful concept, but maybe not the whole story anymore.
Exactly. Does navigating our complex world now require constant conscious intervention?
Hmm.
The visible hands of innovators, yes, but maybe also regulators, ethical leaders,
Mm.
all working to steer things towards genuinely equitable and efficient outcomes. Is that where we are now?
A challenging question for sure.
Something to ponder. Thank you for joining us on the Deep Dive. We hope this exploration has given you some new insights, a fresh perspective on the forces, visible and invisible, shaping our economic world.
Always a pleasure to dig into these ideas.
Until next time.